All right, it's the 8th day of March, 2015, and this is the Radical Agnostic. Your hosts are John and Mark. Mark, how you doing?
Good, how are you?
I'm all right. I'm looking forward to this one. Our guest, this is episode 1. Our guest is Bryan Richter. He's a great friend, a man of many talents, jack of all trades, master of a few, and we're just, the whole theme of this show, this whole radical agnostic business, I want to explain it as we go, throughout the episodes, but rather than giving like a kind of strict definition, I want to sort of show it in action, which means talking about different issues that people hold dear, opinions that they hold dear, but trying to get to a place where we challenge those, see the other side, and hopefully the product of that is an increase in wisdom or something along those lines. So Bryan's kind of the perfect guest for this because you're simultaneously very emotional about a lot of your opinions, but also very intellectual. You don't just pontificate or opine without reason, but you also get heated about a lot of things that you feel deeply.
Fact.
So you're really the perfect guest for this podcast, and there's so many things we could get into with you. One thing that's been on your radar recently is this whole trapping thing. Mm-hmm. What is that? I mean, you're a big environmentalist. You're big into animal rights and ethical treatment of animals. What is trapping, and what don't you like about it?
It's indiscriminate. I don't feel like it's hunting. I understand the need for it in the past, but as far as the need for fur goes, which is pretty much what trapping is about, you don't trap for food. Nobody fucking traps
a fox
vermin to eat.
Right.
It's not. I've never tasted it, but I bet it's not very good. So it's a fur thing, and synthetic fabrics are much warmer and more durable than fur. We don't have a need for it anymore, and you have no idea what you're going to catch in that trap. I mean, you catch people's pets, you catch fucking bald eagles, you catch endangered species, and
they suffer too, right?
Yeah. Well, that's the contention on the other side, that it's humane, that they don't suffer, and I can't imagine that. Like, I've seen the pictures, especially when they get there to kill them. I don't know if you know how they do that. They use choke sticks.
No.
So they pin them down and choke them to death, or a lot of times they'll hold them down with the choke stick and just like kneel on the rib cage to crush all the ribs. Very painful way to die. But I just don't think anything deserves to die like that.
Right. In pain, long drawn out suffering. So,
yeah.
So how do you distinguish it from hunting? Because I know you're a hunter and you're fine with hunting, and so is it the suffering element or?
Well, definitely it's a suffering element. I think. I've advocated for hunting for your meat over factory farming, because if you know anything about the factory farming, those animals live a fairly horrible life, start to finish. That deer that gets harvested during deer season lived a great life. He was probably on cloud 9 until the moment that shot came, and if you take a good shot, they never really even know they were hit. It was all fun and games. It was all they were living a good life until they got harvested.
It's faster, for example, than the way they're going to die, which is starving to death,
right.
Disease, or
attrition,
being eaten by a predator.
Yeah,
and that's not pleasant.
No, it's not. Nature's not pleasant.
Right.
It's not. But I don't. Trapping has always left a bad taste in my mouth, and it's just always going to continue to. And that's a group of people like most people who they take a lot of heat, I'm sure, and they believe in their lifestyle. Like, some of them have come up, especially in these rural areas. You get rural Montana, rural Alaska. This has been what their family's done since the beginning of time. But I just don't think, at some point you got to change. It's like that jiu-jitsu question of tradition versus innovation.
Right.
Like, where's the middle ground? And
do Native American communities, are they involved in trapping? And is that are you opposed to that, or is that it's a gray area?
Well, that's another big subject of mine lately, like the Native American West, and,
right.
Of great interest to me, but that's a little different. I still think that that makes me sound bad if I'm going to advocate for, Native American rights and really kind of still be angry about the way they were treated, and then say, they should change, because that was kind of...
It's difficult. It's a difficult area to make an ethical call, but that's how it should be. That's the radical agnostic. Okay, that's someone who's acknowledging the difficulty of the gray areas, and on almost every issue, this applies. Yeah. So, like, here's my view on. I've been going through a personal sort of journey concerning meat consumption myself. I hate what goes on in factory farming. Cows, pigs, and chickens is what I'm generally talking about. And with all three, it's really horrendous. So it got on my nerves, and then so Paula and I started eating only like free range beef and what do they call it? Grass-fed beef, free-range chicken,
no
stuff
hormones,
like that.
No antibiotics.
Right. So I felt like, okay, I'm sourcing it from better places. And then it was funny because it was Bill Burr's latest special, and if for those of you out there, I mean, this dude is the funniest guy. I mean, he's in the top 5 best comedians alive right now, if you ask me. But in his latest special, and I'm not going to try to repeat the bit, but what he said basically is something had to die for me to eat tonight, like eat this meal tonight. and like it didn't give me any new information,
right?
But I was like, holy shit. And I laughed because it was a great joke, but I was like, wow, something had to die. And I could eat not meat. I could eat something else, but I want meat. But that little delicate preference of mine resulted in the death of a sentient being.
Right.
And that day I was like, man, screw it. I'm not eating meat anymore. So it's been 2 months without meat. And then I see on Facebook, our friend Dan Patrick, who, for those of you out there who don't know, Dan, if you want to follow him on Facebook, he's really good for beautiful photographs of homeless people, anti-Semitism,
urban landscapes. He does some great urban landscapes.
Yeah, he's a great artist.
Yeah,
and he hates Israel and
America.
And he posts a lot of vegan stuff too. So he was posting. So now I'm not eating meat anymore. I'm eating eggs though. I eat a shitload of eggs, 4 a day for lunch.
Right.
And
how are those chickens living?
So.
They're free-range eggs, bro.
Well, I get the free-range eggs. I get like the nicest, like happiest kind in the store, right?
Happy chicken.
Yeah. And then I look it up because Dan posts on Facebook some vegan message that said, "Oh, you think your eggs are ethical? Well, fuck you. Here's what's going on. Their beaks are chopped off. They got a hot rod up their ass. Like, it's just horrible." And I was like, "No." The hens, the hens, and they call the male chicks too, because it's the female is the chicken and that lays the eggs.
Right, and there's your chicken dog food, like
right. Well, they just grind up the male chicks into like a paste, and that dog food or whatever.
McNuggets.
So I was like, oh man, is this true? My eggs are happy. Like I spend like $2 extra per carton to get these happy eggs. So I look it up, like the company I was using, and sure enough, it was all bullshit. And their hens, they chop the beaks off. Mm-hmm. They're culling the males. They're free range, which means they get an hour a day outside, at least.
Yeah, but most people don't know that's what that actually means.
That's what that means.
1 hour a day.
And it's actually fully unregulated. So that even those standards, there's no government agency checking on them.
Yeah,
so
that's freedom, though. That's what prisoners get too, like 1 hour out a day, right?
Yeah, on the yard.
Prison, you get the same.
But even if there was a government agency checking on them, how much do you trust that? I mean, go to the post office. You'll see the ineptness. go to the DMV.
Yeah.
I mean, you trust something like that to check on what your food is.
It's a very good point.
You have some company bigwig that meets him at the door of the factory and slaps an envelope of money in their hand, and they're
right,
and the copy of the report that they'd like him to write.
So the conclusion I come to, I'm like, oh Jesus, now I can't eat eggs anymore. So I hit Paula up for some kind of lunch meal that can replace the protein and all the good stuff in eggs. But here's the point. But see, an ideological approach to this would be, all right, eating meat and eating eggs is wrong. And since I've stopped doing it, now I advocate that you stop doing it. But the radical agnostic approach to this is different. And it's this. If you understand where your meat and eggs are coming from, you fully get it. And to me, that kind of means you have to visit the place where it's done, the slaughterhouse, and you're still okay with it, and you still want meat, I have no moral qualm with you. What I have a moral qualm with is intentional ignorance on that subject. So eating the meat, even though you know if you went to the factory, you wouldn't be eating meat that night.
Right.
So that's my approach to it, is you have to be aware and cognizant of the implications or effects of your actions and what you consume in this case. That's the radical agnostic approach to meat consumption for me. So I'm totally fine with you if you know what's going on behind closed doors and you still eat meat. I mean, there's no objective moral truth that I think I'm getting at. The only objective moral truth I am getting at is that people should be aware of the consequences of their actions and then own that. So that's my view on meat consumption. And my question for you is, you and your wife are very educated on animal ethical treatment of animals and the environment. You especially your wife, she really researches this stuff. Yeah. She knows all about it. She gives you a lot of pertinent information. But you guys still eat meat. And you guys will go out to a restaurant and eat meat too. Yeah. So my question to you is, how does that? Have you had that discussion with her, and how do you feel about that?
Yeah, we have talked about that. Like, she won't eat red meat out. I rarely eat red meat out anymore. Although I do have a weakness for burgers. But since you turned me on to the Gray's place, I've been going there because I know Neiman Ranch actually really does have a good reputation, and you can go tour their ranch and the facilities that they use.
Mark, have you been to Gray's on Speedway?
No, I've heard about it, but I haven't been.
Oh man, it's delicious.
But I've been trying not to eat too much red meat too.
So talk to me about your approach to this subject, and what do you think of my little? Okay,
so this is where perception and reality
diverge.
Yeah. So I agree with Bill Burr. Something had to die for me to eat.
Right.
Actually, I go further. Something had to die for me to live. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, people can put whatever parameters they want on it, and whatever they're okay with in their life, in their morals. Like you said, I think everyone should be not ignorant and understanding of where their food comes from. But that includes vegetarians and vegans.
Right.
Lots of people think you can go to the store and buy produce and there's no suffering behind that. That's absolutely untrue.
Are you talking about the little rodents that get ground up?
Talking about all kinds of animals get killed by farmers to protect their crops.
Right.
Okay? So if you think there's no blood on your hands because you ate a potato or something, you're absolutely ignorant. Not only that, but they've done studies now, scientists, about plants. And, I mean, when they tear something off, it makes there's a stimulus. You know, plants don't have mouths. They can't scream. They don't bleed red blood.
They don't have nerves either, though. As we
know them.
Right.
They're not like us physiologically. So we don't think they understand pain.
Right.
But that just means that that's how we think. Okay. That's how we've been brought up.
A lot of people take this tack with vegans and vegetarians, and they say, look, you guys are trying to reduce the suffering of animals and other organisms, but you're not doing it perfectly. Look, you're really hurting animals in this way. And to that I say, you're right, there is no pure vegan, but aren't they doing something? And isn't a reasonable vegan say, look, I'm trying to reduce it as much as I can.
But like I said, it's to your level. Right. But you think you're doing more than I am because you don't eat meat.
Right.
Well, but how much suffering are you causing? Like, there's those things on YouTube now where these people are going into restaurants and screaming at the customers. Now, I'm not saying that that's really suffering, but if you're walking around with this fucking ego,
spreading hate,
and this, and then this idea that you're on this fucking mighty and superior, way better than everyone else because you don't eat meat, I can guarantee that you're causing suffering to someone in your life.
You're making a good point. I think it's a little abstract, though.
It's completely abstract. But
let me narrow it down. How do you feel about the meat that you eat on a daily basis? Where that comes from? How do you feel about the treatment of cattle and poultry and pigs?
I don't eat veal. So, like, there are things that I've put as lines I won't cross.
Right.
But that's because of the society I live in, how I've been brought up, how I think. Now, what if I was born in Papua New Guinea and I was a cannibal?
Right.
Like, I'd be fine with eating people. Mm-hmm. But I wasn't born in that society, so you know what I mean? So, like, it's all about our culture, how we've been raised, what we are indoctrinated with.
It's undoubtedly true, but are you using that to say, to sort of escape the responsibility of drawing your own lines? Are you saying, look, I'm a product of the culture, so...
like I just told you, I don't eat veal.
Right. So
there are things that I won't eat.
Yeah.
But that's according to my personal... You know what I mean? And that's what I think everyone should do. Like you said, it's your own personal choice, what you want to eat, what you don't want to eat.
What do you think you would eat meat if, say, you had to take a tour of the slaughterhouse today? Do you think that would change what you eat?
My grandfather was a farmer, and so I've been to slaughterhouses. Yeah.
So that's perfect. That goes along totally with my approach to this, which is if you know what you're doing or what the consequences of your lifestyle and you're okay with it, you're morally fine in my book. Well,
and the other thing is, I think if you really want to be aware and know exactly where your food's coming from and know that there's nothing suspicious or terrible behind it, you need to raise your own stuff.
Yeah.
You need to have your own animals, have your own chickens, laying their eggs, grow your own crops, do all that stuff. If you're doing all that, then you can tell me that I'm a piece of shit for what I eat.
Right.
If you don't do that, you can go take a flying fuck.
Right.
I got the lady across the street from me, dude. She got fucking chickens, ducks, a garden. Like she's basically homesteading over there on a 1/4 acre.
And the chickens are so easy, man. If you have a house, I mean, you guys could even do it.
Yeah, we thought about it.
Rogan's got like 22 chickens or whatever, and those hens lay eggs every day.
Yeah,
you get eggs every day, and
they're good too. My friends out east Speedway,
that's that orange yolk.
Yeah. They used to bring them into the hospital when I worked over there, and they don't even look like store-bought eggs. Even the organic ones don't even...
Paula was wondering if you need a rooster in there or not. You don't.
No. The rooster's pretty much there just to kick the fox's ass.
Yeah.
And to create more chickens.
Yeah, to create more chickens. But if you're just looking for eggs, you don't need a rooster.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's anything like physiological, like pheromonal or anything where they lay more if there's a rooster present, though.
I've
never really heard. I don't know enough about it.
It might change
the hillbilly.
It might change the quote unquote pecking order, right?
Yeah.
Because that's how the hens establish dominance or some
by who the rooster
social
favors.
structure.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and I do know that, like, so a friend of mine has chickens, and he had a rooster for a while, and he ended up killing it and eating it because it was a pain in the ass. I mean, I think because of crowing and like it was doing something else to the to bother the chickens, and maybe they weren't producing as much,
right?
Doing something I can't remember.
And then you're attracting coyotes, and dogs like to kill those chickens too.
I'm sure our neighborhood stray cats would have a field day back there.
And chickens are stupid. I mean, let's be honest. Werner Herzog, the documentary director.
Yeah.
He said he has some quote, and they put it on one of those inspirational posters, and it said it's something. And I just think of his German accent when he's saying, he's like, when I look into the eyes of a chicken, he's like, I see a black emptiness that makes me want to give up on the universe and die. He's like, I see an empty hole where there should be consciousness. It's kind of true, those little beady black eyes. And here's the ultimate thing. I was starting to feel self-righteous about my choices with the eggs and all that shit, and I'm going to continue not to eat those products. But then I fed the cats, and I was like, oh, Jesus. Like, this cat food is full of like 9 different animals. You cannot be a vegan and own cats, period.
Yeah,
you can't. It's impossible.
They have strictly a meat diet.
So they need protein. They basically live off of.
So what are you doing for protein? Like beans and
all kinds of, a lot of eggs.
But then the whey, there's dairy cows. They get treated like shit too.
That's my next thing is dairy.
Yeah, it's not. There's what it comes down to is what is Maynard's line about the universe being hostile? It's
the
devour
universe
to
is hostile,
survive.
so impersonal, devour to survive, so it is, so it's
Always been.
Yeah.
It's not like it's like hearing you guys talk about the different sides of it, and something has to die if you're growing this. What are you like? I read this thing about the Doritos and Fritos, all the deforestation that's going on to grow more corn to make
Jesus.
corn chips, and this is in Brazil in particular in the rainforest, which. I'd rather run out of Doritos than air. I mean, it's a fucking personal preference for me.
That's
but
a fair trade.
But I'll give up the Cool Ranch for my next breath all day, every fucking day.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So there's no way in nature. There's nothing that lives without something else. I mean, it just doesn't happen. And as a supposedly evolved people, and I think you touched on it, saying self-righteous. Everybody's got a little bit of that self-righteous quality in them. As a self-righteous.
Well, as soon as you make a moral move or a moral change, all of a sudden that's the universal rule that everyone else has to follow because you identify personally with it.
But see, that's what I think is the problem. Not you making the moral choice,
right.
But then you saying everyone else has to do what I do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's how
because
I had to get around that with my approach to it in terms of radical agnosticism. So
right,
I did. I made it an honesty issue.
Right.
As long as you're intellectually honest about your choices, I'm okay with your choices.
So the radical agnostic movement is just like an awareness movement. Like if you know what you're doing and you know that it's fucked up and you don't care, then it's kind of less fucked up.
Yeah, it's just like in my book where I said I prefer an evil man to a counterfeit man, someone who doesn't know they're evil or is denying the evil and pretending they're good. I would much rather have an outright evil human being
who
says,
to deal with.
I hate people. Yeah. I'm a sadist. It gives me joy to cause pain, so I'm going to go do that. I respect that person more than I respect the priestly saint guy who's actually molesting kids or doing sadistic things behind the scenes.
Beating the shit out of hookers in the rectory.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and also, I think everyone needs a filter, because if you don't have that filter and you knew the suffering that produced every single thing in your life, whether it's these headphones, the chair you're sitting on, this apartment building, you would go crazy and you would be like, I cannot do anything except go sit on top of a mountain somewhere.
Yeah. You need to reduce the influx of empathy, or you can't live.
Yeah.
I mean, there's people like that, I think, really sensitive people who are extremely empathetic.
Yeah, but
they suffer.
Even a lot of them, though, they don't know the whole story. Because you're arguing against gas and petroleum and all this shit, but that's what your headphones are made of. That's what your fucking car's made of. That's what all your plastics are made of. Like, you don't know the extent of what you're arguing against. I get what you're arguing against, and I sympathize with it a lot of times. So, and I'm guilty of the same thing till I do my research and think, fuck, I hate that copper mine, but we don't have this mic cable without that fucking copper mine. You don't have the hardware in your computer without that copper mine.
And there's theoretically alternatives to all those things, but they're far too expensive to be
feasible.
Yeah,
especially for the amount that we need of it.
Remember peak oil? Remember when we were liberals like 8 years ago, and they said
that whole show.
Look, it's running out by 2012. That's it. The price is going to skyrocket.
Well, frack that.
I wonder if they were right, but the new techniques unleashed a lot more resources, and we were running out of that.
Eventually, they're going to be fucking right. It's going to run out.
So
right. Eventually, they're right.
But their timelines were bullshit.
Yeah.
And to me, like any honest liberal has to say, we took a hit on that one. We took a hit on peak oil because we were scaring up the population about this issue, and it never came to fruition.
Right.
It was a big flop. The gas is super cheap now and super available.
Yeah, like everything, like Ebola. I mean,
well, I was on top of that bullshit. Any sickness scare, I am always the first guy to be like, shut up, it's not going to happen. You're not going to get it.
Yeah.
No one's going to get it. We're fine.
Yeah, you're going to end up in a FEMA camp before you get Ebola.
I want to see the guy I saw on your Facebook page. He's one of your friends, but I can't remember who he was. And he had this post that said, mark my words.
He goes,
mark my words. And by 6 months' time, we're going to be in FEMA camps in these locations and stuff. And I was like, I want to get on, message him and be like, I'm marking your words. I'm marking what you said, and I'm back, and it's 8 months later, and you feel like an idiot now, don't you? Is this maybe this will stop you from doing that again next time? It won't. They don't think about the fact.
I know what you're talking about. I'm not going to out him in case he hears this shit, but I know what you're talking about. Yeah, he gets fired up, man. He's a funny guy. His name alone, man. Like,
I don't. Yeah, see, I don't remember his name.
Yeah, well, he's a little hot-headed.
So. Look.
Yeah, but I saw this post, and I'm not in a FEMA camp. I did mark his words. It's been at least 18 months. Still walking around, man. They haven't come for me yet. No brown shirts knocking on the door.
It's out of the news.
Yeah.
But this also applies to gun confiscation, though. So now we enter another topic that's very near and dear to Bryan and probably Mark, too. Yeah. Any American who's thinking is thinking about guns. And I'm thinking we could call this episode Guns, God, and Government, based on the Marilyn Manson tour name from like 15 years ago. But I mean, this is a big issue. We were getting into it before we started recording, and see, this is why you're the perfect guest for the Radical Agnostic, because you deeply feel both sides of this. So you don't want to be equated with these NRA guys.
No.
Right?
The psychotic guys who go on talking trash to Gabby Giffords and fucking threatening people's babies and acting like acting like assholes.
Yeah.
I'm not carrying M4s into Chipotle
to make a point.
It's fucking ridiculous,
man.
That would make me nervous, and I carry a gun.
Yeah.
I'd have like my fucking hand on it if I saw you standing there with an M4 strapped across your back. It's psychotic.
Now think of this, though. People, probably the majority of the country, probably, maybe a slight majority, are kind of in favor of gun control, I think, if you look at the percentage. It's probably about 50-50. But
so the rest of us would contend that there is gun control.
Right. But what I'm saying is that what you just said about the nervous thing, when these people, like, I think of my mom, people that are like suburban white people, they're reasonable folk, but they don't live in a place where there's any real perceived danger. When they see you or a guy in the grocery store, like I saw yesterday, open carry, yeah, that makes people feel really nervous. I mean, a lot of these people have never held a gun. So when you say that this M4 guy at Chipotle makes you kind of nervous, it's kind of just because the presence of this weapon it kind of ups the ante. It raises sort of...
it's a fucking extreme. Like, I carry.
It raises your hackles, and it makes the use of that gun more likely, almost, in your imagination, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's not really a stretch either.
Right.
I mean, I agree there's a threat out there. I think people should carry. I think most people should have handgun training and carry handguns, at least be proficient in firearms, so that you're not so scared of them.
Right.
But that I don't see. I have an M4. I do. It stays in my safe, locked the fuck up, not strapped on my back going to get a burrito.
For those who don't know, an M4 is what they would call an assault rifle.
Yeah.
Is it the standard issue for Army or what?
No, mine's a little more high end than what the Army would get. But yeah, it's the M4 platform, that basic AR platform that they use. It's popular with a lot of sports shooters.
Right.
And it's cheap to shoot. For now, they're trying to ban that M855 ammo because of the steel core. They're trying to qualify as armor piercing. So we'll see what happens to that. But might get quite a bit more expensive to shoot. But
here's my perception, though. Something I've wanted to say for a while to the pro-gun people. And, well, I mean...
Which I fall into, so you got one.
I was tripping over that phrase because... in general, I fall into it too. And Mark, all three of us are in favor of the Second Amendment and the right to bear arms in general, right?
Yeah, and for me, what else are you going to do? Guns exist.
Yeah. Are
you going to kill every single person that knows how to build one and burn all the books that will give you knowledge to do that? And I mean? How can you actually control guns?
That's a good point, especially with 3D printing now.
Yeah, well, and the fact that you can use a lot of polymer stuff, they're still going to have to come up with a metal barrel.
Right.
I don't know, carbon fiber. Well, they're making carbon fiber barrels now, but you'd have to have a pretty fucking sophisticated shop to build a really nice weapon.
But in 10 years, metal 3D printers, which already exist, will be affordable.
Well, it's coming, and I know, I don't know if you know the story. I never owned a gun, or never thought I would own a gun until I got robbed at gunpoint.
Oh wow!
And then years later, actually on the phone with you, I stopped two guys from what TPD told me was an abduction attempt on my wife
outside of a store.
I pulled a gun on them, then they came back, and I had to pull the gun on them again.
And I was on the phone live with you during this, and I was shitting my pants, and
so was I.
Yeah, trying to keep you calm, and you handled it real well.
And I'm a purple belt in jiu-jitsu at that time. I can take care of myself pretty good. I don't think I can take those two guys at the same time, and who knows what happens to my wife. So when people tell me, "Oh, we're going to take your gun," I think, "Oh my God, if I didn't have one, maybe I wouldn't have my wife."
Right. It's an example of an instance. I mean, here's what I wanted to say though.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, the pro-gun people who the NRA and other organizations feed the fire by creating fear.
Yeah.
Fear of confiscation. Fear of laws that are heavily restrictive of what you can purchase and what you can own.
Right.
Well, I say, for some reason, it reminds me of the World Cup match last year or whatever between Germany and Brazil, I think it was, where Germany trounced. It was like 12-2 or something. Remember that?
Yeah, it was bad.
To me, the pro-gun people are Germany in that instance. They've won every battle. You have everything you want, right? And no legislation never makes it. I mean, maybe on the state level in some liberal states, but federally, you never get really any legislation. They pushed for certain things after Sandy Hook, and those didn't even get passed. So to me, the pro-gun people are like a team that's won, or they're 15 points ahead, but they're acting like they're victims, or they're about to be victims of some kind of abuse. But to me, you guys have won, and I'm you guys too.
For the most part, I think, yeah. I mean, I think they would contend that there shouldn't be a tax stamp on suppressors and fully auto weapons, and I would, for the most part, disagree with that. Like I said before, I don't want to be counted with those NRA guys because they're kind of a far right all or nothing, which is all or nothing is always stupid.
Right.
It doesn't matter what the debate is. If you're all the way to one side of it, I can't be with you because there's definitely another side to it.
Because you're not a human being. So it's like I think we talked about it last time, Mark, but it'll never air. But the people who are flamboyant people, okay, so you could be a Harvard guy that wears a scarf and talks in that sort of white way that they actually still speak in, or you could be a flamboyant gay guy who is just kind of in your face about it and almost rude, or you could have like
which fucking kills me, by the way, though. I love that shit. I can't like it. Yeah, it's one of the funniest things in the world.
No,
to
it's
me.
great, but what about becoming friends with that guy? There would be a block there. You're like, okay.
You think it get old after a minute? Like,
yeah, I'm like, do you ever turn it off?
We're talking about the kind of guy, like, have you seen Best in Show?
Yes.
Like we're talking about that kind of guy, right? Like, give me the pepperoni stick, but I just want to hold it.
Yes,
like,
yes.
Yeah.
Or the guy in the birdcage that was Robin Williams' partner.
I don't know. My wife wants one of those guys around like 24/7. She loves that shit. Dude.
Yeah. But to me, I think they must be exhausted half the time because they always have to act that way. And you've got like gangster dudes who, I mean, there's real gangsters out there, but then there's dudes who wear the clothes. Play the role, yeah. They talk the thing. It's like
you just wonder how much of it is genuine.
Well, yeah, I know that it's not in a lot of these cases, and I'm saying that's a barrier.
But just to keep that front up all the time.
Yeah, and it's a barrier. It's a barrier to interpersonal relationships with those people. So it's the same with the super gun guys. Like you said, you don't want to be part of anyone who defines themselves by an ideology or something. It's because you can't talk to that person. You can't really be friends with that person.
Except for I can like I understand what you guys are saying, but then and the NRA for the most part I don't agree with because most of that, at least at the higher level, is basically people involved in gun manufacturing. Well, and so their point isn't really your freedom or you being able to do, but it's to be able to produce more stuff,
product. Further their personal interests.
Well, you see the industry posters. Like I saw a shot on Facebook at like one of the company made my rifle, LWRC, in their shop. There's a poster on the background in one of the pictures. I think it was them that said it showed a picture of Obama and it said best gun salesman ever.
Right. And they're almost like
what's the defense industry
letting the cat out of the bag when they make that poster. They're like showing you how their whole lobbying industry works. You create the fear, and then you get guys like our friend Jeff, who goes out and, you can't find this ammo. You can't get it. You can't find it. You know why? Because the government bought it up or it's this or that.
But then you would think that Obama and that side that wants to get some legislation would also be smart and learn from that and be like, hey, what do we actually want to do? Do we actually just want to decrease shootings? And so then, like, do something like, okay, if you buy a gun, you have to go through an instructional course. But you have to take a 6-week, gun ownership and
NRA,
firing.
That lobby is going to oppose anything like that.
But that would be easier to pass than you banning ammo or guns. Or
I think what the big debate came up with, a lot of that was the gun show loophole. That loophole is the big thing about what they're talking about. Okay, and I'm not opposed to that. I'm not opposed to closing that loophole. That's what I never get a chance to say this stuff when I talk to anti-gun people, because they do the same thing to me that NRA guys do to them. They call me names, they cuss me out, they call me a piece of shit, they call me a coward.
What did the girl on Facebook say?
Yeah. She her contention was that the majority of American gun owners are too uneducated and too irresponsible to own guns.
Right. Just pulled out of her ass completely.
But then she says she's not talking about me, and I said, well, no, I am actually in the majority of gun owners, which are people who own guns legally and don't commit crimes.
Right.
That's the majority. So I gave her some numbers, and then she told me she doesn't care about her numbers, how her husband serves, so that pieces of shit like me can have our opinion, and because we don't agree is no reason for me to be a douchebag. And I'm like, wait, I'm attacking your arguments. You're attacking my character. And the funny thing was, in the beginning of this discussion, I told her that she was going to do this, that she was going to attack my character, and that she was going to call me names. And then she continued to do it.
And you've experienced an evolution of the way you argue on social media and stuff, right? Like,
I've tried to take the emotion out of it. Yeah, because then I started egging her on. I'm like, come on, get puffed up. Call me some more names. Call me some more names. Yeah. I'm like, you make these blanket statements with no facts to back them up. You tell me you don't care about my facts, and then you call me names and question my intelligence.
Well, and that's just how people act when their argument is based more on emotion than facts.
Yeah, well, and that's what I said.
And eventually,
in the beginning.
even if they have somewhat of an argument, eventually, if you know more about it, they run out, and then that's all they can fall back
Which reveals, of course, that very few people are interested in arriving at truth and or wisdom.
Right.
They've got their facts, but the only purpose, the only reason the facts are in the tool bag is to promote the emotional opinion.
Yeah, well, and they have just enough facts to do that.
Right.
Like, I know the facts on the other side. I don't. If any people who agree with confiscation or are against gun violence, I'm against gun violence. I don't want to see fucking kids get shot.
Right.
I don't want to see fucking psychos stalking through malls shooting up people. But how come none of you people are lobbying for better mental health funding or better ways of identifying people who are at risk of acting like this because they're out there?
Well, to them, that's roundabout. It's like, well, why if I get the guns off the street, I cut the head off of the Hydra.
But do we get the guns off the street?
No.
Because even France, with some of the strictest gun laws in the world, has guys running around with AK-47s fucking shooting up newspapers. So how'd they get them?
Right. There's always a black market. But one of the arguments, though, for the anti-gun people or the gun control people is that there's always a black market, but if you look at the numbers, a black market assault rifle in Australia, for example, it was like $60,000.
Yeah, hard to get. Now, it's hard to argue that.
Right. Because not as many people will get their hands on them as a guy here could get that rifle for $5,000.
The attack on assault rifles is a funny thing, though, because if you look at the crimes that they're actually used in, they're so few.
I'm sure.
It's
not a good gun for a robbery.
No. Also, if you look at how they ban assault weapons, there's plenty of assault weapons that they have not banned, but they don't look like the ones in the movies.
The scary ones.
They don't have like a
wooden
hand grip.
Like a wooden stock rifle with an old rectangular clip doesn't really look scary. But it does the same thing. It's a semi-automatic rifle.
I know it's semantics, but to me, like, assault weapon is funny because if I ball up my fist and fucking punch you in the nose with it, it was an assault. I assaulted you with this weapon.
Right.
You know, it's
My point on that is, though, that look, it's still, you wouldn't disagree that your M4 is a more efficient killing machine than a World War II semi-automatic rifle, right?
Yeah.
So it's a more efficient
evolution. There's a shirt out that says modern day musket.
It's better.
It's what the.
I'm talking about even still other modern assault weapons. There are, you take two guns, they're exactly the same, except for one has a pistol grip and one and maybe like a shorter barrel, right. And that one is the one that they banned. The other one they did not touch.
Right.
Yeah. So there's just weapons like this that you can look at how the government acts, and they don't even know what the hell they're doing.
No.
They're just like willy-nilly, like, oh, well, we need to ban this one because I saw it in Terminator 2.
But here's,
we need to ban the,
Well, my opinion is that Obama doesn't want to touch this issue. The only reason he did is he got pressure from a certain wing of the Democrats after Sandy Hook because the country as a whole was up in arms and wanted Daddy to do something.
And look at
Daddy
Sandy
had
Hook.
to pretend to do something.
Well, and look at Sandy Hook. What could the government do beyond what they're already doing? Right. Beyond what they would want to do.
Because the mother
legally owned them. Right. She had them locked in a safe.
Wow.
Dude got them out. Dude killed her, took the keys, got them out. So what could the government have done to make it harder for him to get that?
If she wasn't allowed to purchase that weapon in the first place.
Right.
Which goes back to one of that girl's.
But he still would have done
something. One of her central arguments, the one who was cussing me out the other day about people can't secure their guns. But then she goes on later in her argument to tell me that her father got his gun stolen out of his car. And so when I asked her, well, does your father fall into that group of irresponsible, uneducated people since he got his gun stolen? And magically, he didn't fall into that. He didn't fall into that category.
An exception to the rule.
So there's not, I'm trying to, right there I say, well, see, you're not even rational. Right now, you're not even being rational because you're already making exceptions to your rule because it's somebody you're related to. Oh, so they're not the same dipshit that I am. Although, who knows what's happening with his gun and mine? I know exactly where it is. It's safe and sound in my safe.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean, you're a man's man. You can get fired up.
Yeah.
And have you not been in incidents where you had a gun, where you were very fired up, and where it might have gone farther than it should have?
Yeah, depending on what,
like a road rage type of thing.
Depending on what happened on the other side of it, yeah. Like I had guys ask me if I want to get shot, and I'm like, well, you better be quick.
Did you pull?
Yeah, I have pulled my gun on people.
Yeah.
I've had people pull their gun on me. I had a guy swerve his car at me a couple times. I pulled my gun on him. I feel like that's
You've taught me a lot of these rules because my family, my father, he had a 45 somewhere in the house, but we weren't a gun family. So you taught me a lot of this stuff. But one of those rules is you only pull that gun and aim it when you're ready to fire.
If you plan to use it.
Yeah. So you have to be ready to do that. I mean,
but I haven't had guns pulled on me. It's if you're not prepared to carry out that threat, maybe you shouldn't make it either. Because I've had guys like pull up, like I pulled out, and the guy starts honking at me and screaming at me, so we trade fingers, and then he says something like, I'll shoot you in the fucking head. So I'm like, are you armed, bro? Because I am. I usually let him know.
Yeah.
But I've had that happen many times. I cut a guy off in traffic. I was waving at him like, hey, man, I'm sorry. And I look up, and he's cocking a gun and pointing at me in my rearview mirror.
Jesus.
Yeah, my crazy brother was actually in the car with me at that point.
I had a gun pulled on me at Vaudeville when the club all three of us used to work at. Bouncing, and we had to throw a group of guys out, and then
I remember that.
It was like 8 or 9 guys that we were throwing out, and a guy came through with his truck down the alley to sort of separate us from his group, and there was one of our guys was running away in front of the truck, so the guy in the truck pins the dude against the brick wall with the truck. He swerves into the guy, and it caught his shirt. It caught his shirt against the brick wall. It easily could have just smashed his torso. So I jump into the passenger's side up on this pickup truck. I pull myself up, and I'm staring down the barrel of a handgun. And I just ducked and covered and ran away. I mean, I was
about the best thing then.
So, but
and more recently, I went outside. Those guys that were beating the shit out of that girl out there, and then I called 911. They told me they couldn't get anybody there, so I went out to help her. And I think they were gonna come at me until they saw that I was armed.
That's true.
So and
yeah, and there's all kinds of stuff like that. I mean, I've been shot. I've had guns pulled on me, and you don't know what you're gonna do until you're put in that position. So anyone that says, you shouldn't carry a gun because you might get emotional or, whatever.
You're right.
Like Brian's saying, like you shouldn't do that unless you're willing to carry it out, unless you're actually ready. Because, I mean, tons of people, I'm sure, have pulled a gun or shown that they had a gun and had it taken away from them.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
doesn't this go back to the radical agnostic approach to the meat consumption, which was you got to know what your actions entail, and if you do,
Well, and be prepared to be responsible for it. You have to be responsible.
But
because there's a lot of responsibility that comes with owning a gun, man. There is. You have to know where the fuck it is at all times.
But what I was going to get to was the problem isn't guns, actually. It's people's attitudes and what people do.
And behavior.
And their behavior. And I'm sorry, but we come from a culture and a society that believes that aggression and weapons solve problems.
Right.
We do it all the time, invading other countries, doing stuff. Our police here at home, I read a story the other day about this guy was jogging, and they told him to get, he was on the side of the street, I guess. They stopped to tell him to get on the sidewalk. Cop has his hand on his taser as he's telling him that. It's like he had to threaten him to do that. You know what I mean?
With physical violence.
Physical violence.
And Americans don't know. A lot of us don't realize how Europeans view us and view this country when they visit. And they're just in general. I mean, if they're not being uptight or stuck up about it, they're just very surprised and they're put off by it. And like there were some Germans that I was talking to at a house party and.
Yeah, those civilized Germans.
It came to
some fucking ground to stand on when it comes to humanity.
It came to guns, the discussion, and I think I had my .38, and I pulled it out and I was like, here, hold it and stuff. Of course, it's a .38. It's got 5 rounds in the chamber. You take them out.
Right.
It's empty. It can't cause an accident.
Safe. Yeah, it's not even a good club.
No,
it's too small.
They wouldn't touch it. They would not put it in their hand. I go, just hold your hands like this, like you're cupping water. And
you can hand them an axe, which is 10 times as dangerous as an unloaded pistol, and they're fine with
there's
like
that. Superstition attached to it.
Oh, there's definitely
Well, I think
but European cops, like you were saying, they
got fucking machine guns.
Well, yeah, no, but the normal beat cops generally don't carry any gun.
No, you watch them get gunned down in front of Charlie Hebdo as soon as they showed up and responded to that.
That's true. But in general, I'm sort of promoting their model in a way, because in general, crimes are approached very differently. When I lived in Scotland, the cops come up and they start talking to you.
Yeah.
And they'll talk for like 10, 20, 30 minutes. And then if they'll decide if they're going to, give you a ticket or arrest you, but it's a discussion. And their whole approach to it is, don't agitate this person that I don't know, this potential criminal. Just talk to them. It's sort of like when we worked in the psych hospital, when you're coming up on someone, an unpredictable character with a diagnosis that you're not sure of, or you don't know if they're seeing things or hearing things. So you come up and you approach it very carefully. And that's how the police generally behave in European countries.
Right.
And it's much more fair. And they wear these big yellow reflective vests, not intimidating at all. They look like crossing guards.
Right. Ours look like fucking commandos.
They look like the SS, man.
He's Stucky when he comes in. I'm scared of that guy, man. He comes walking in there in his battle
armor. Fucking.
And yet that's pretty much what's in our media all the time right now, right? Is cop violence.
Yes.
Citizens being killed by cops. So why isn't that more of a discussion about gun control for the police?
Well, that's a funny thing.
How come it's always citizens and never talking about maybe taking guns away from them?
Those same liberals are on the page calling cops psycho murderers, or calling me an idiot and telling me that cops are the only ones that should have guns. You can't have it both ways, man.
No, they are very confused about it. And the conservative guys are now... The gun guys will generally take the side of the cop because they don't want to take the side of a dead black guy. So they'll take the side of the cop, but their whole thing is to be armed against government incursions. So they should be very angry that the police are being so forceful.
Well, they probably quietly are.
Well, yes.
Well,
they just can't take that side because of their other issues.
Also
because liberals are jumping on.
Right.
But that also shows the hypocrisy of a lot of the conservative gun groups and the NRA. Specifically, because during the 60s, when the Black Panthers organized and said, we're going to start arming ourselves and being out in the street, the NRA did not back them. In fact, the NRA got with the government to try to stop them and take their guns away.
Just can't bring himself to back a black guy. Man.
I'd like to see the NRA come out after one of these shootings and fucking slam it. Just say how awful it is.
Yes.
Just say it, dude, because it is. I got guns, and I know how awful it is.
Instead of immediately turning it into propaganda for their message, immediately saying the reason this shooting happened is because of gun control.
And maybe,
like you're like, what? And they'll give you some roundabout explanation as to why gun control led to this.
If everyone had a gun, they would have shot the guy.
Right, exactly.
So back to the initial point, though, if we can for a second.
Yes.
About the actual legislation. Because I think the big bone of contention is closing the loophole where you can buy from private sellers, and as a reasonable gun owner, I have a solution to that. Honestly, I think I do. I'm all for closing that gun show loophole and not being able to make private sales without having to go through a background check and an FFL. But what I think a lot of people in the gun world are worried about is our interests change, and a lot of us shoot for pleasure. We do. And different guns shoot different ways, and you go through phases where some guys like to shoot old school single action cowboy guns, and other guys like 1911, and some guys shoot long range.
It's a hobby.
So you go through different things.
It's a sport.
So sometimes you sell guns, sometimes you buy them, and what we're worried about is getting gouged when we go to resale them, because you're already probably going to take a hit. So if they can make legislation that's fair, like maybe regulate the cost of that background check. Because if I want to sell John my gun, right? I come to sell you my gun, and we have to go through a background check. And you're already trying to get a better deal on a used gun, trying to help me out. We're both good guys, so we're willing to go get a background check. But we get in there, and in addition to the $450 you got to give me, this guy wants to charge you $150 to fax a paper.
Yeah, it's a libertarian nightmare.
Yeah, if it was $15, I got no problem with that.
Right.
But
it's just more revenue for the government in that.
But it comes down to other political issues, like when you write that bill, what are the riders on it? What is the other language? Does it lead to confiscation? Does it lead to further restrictions? I'm on that note, I think you should only be allowed to write a bill for what that bill is for. There shouldn't be anything able to be attached to it.
Yeah.
And I think you'd get a lot more support. I would come in and vote for that right away. Close that loophole, make everybody go through a background check, but make the cost reasonable and fair.
Well, what's the history of that legislation in Congress? I mean, you're telling me there hasn't been a simple.
Well, well, either there's something attached to it, or they don't vote for it, because that, like we've alluded to, that NRA lobby is strong. They generally win these battles unless there's just overwhelming public majority, and that's why I won't join the NRA, because I don't like the way they go about their business. I just don't, man. I'm for the Second Amendment. I'm not. I plan to never give up my Second Amendment rights. But history repeats, man. I think of what happened to Hitler's Russia and Stalin's Russia and Hitler's Germany and the Native American, and they disarm you. When a population's disarmed, they can't resist at all.
My response to that is always, though, that it's so far out of the realm of possibility that any president or federal government would ever go house to house. Now, the thing is, it's a slippery slope, and I think that's the other side, is that, look, it's not going to happen anytime soon, but if we allow these legislation to build up...
The erosion of liberty, yada, yada, yada.
Propaganda to feed to create a majority of American people supporting this, then maybe eventually we could have a situation where the guns are being confiscated. But right now, any rational person has to agree it's completely outside the realm of possibility. No president is going to go house to house and take private property. It doesn't happen.
I don't know how beyond the realm of possibility it is, because 20 years ago I would have said it's beyond the realm of possibility that the president of the United States could order and get the death of a U.S. citizen without due process. But that's what we're at right now.
We're talking about the National Defense Authorization Act.
Yeah.
The NDAA.
Which you don't hear any of your Democratic friends talking about. But they bitch to high hell about the Patriot Act.
Right, because Obama signed it in, so it must be okay.
You don't hear any Obama supporter talking about it. And anytime I've called my big-time Obama friends out on that, like where nobody says a word.
But no Republicans criticize him for that anyway. It's so paradoxical. One of the worst things he's done as president
is sign
and
that.
The Republicans don't say peep one about it, because it's a bipartisan. It's a bipartisan thing. It passed both houses of Congress.
Right.
Any president would have done it. Bush would have done it. They all
any president that we're currently electing.
Right. That's
because we're not electing the people that we think are for our freedom.
No.
And are like Obama. Obama was not for hope and change.
He sure
Obama has pretty much carried on the George W. Bush legacy.
And even gone further. Like he went further with the National Defense Authorization Act.
And so the people that should be calling him out are on his side.
Yeah, big time.
The Democrats, they're not going to call him out because they're on his side.
Right.
The other side's not going to call him out because they're for it.
Because it feeds the war machine.
But how fucked up is that? That the worst things he's done get no criticism.
Yeah.
And then all these other things, you know.
Yeah. It's media.
It's mind-blowing.
It's media. We need more podcasts, less Brian Williams, less fucking Ann Coulter, less any of these guys.
By the way, the reason I didn't, we decided not to call this a podcast because I was thinking about it. I was like, what the hell is a podcast? It must have something to do with an iPod, which is a device that isn't even sold anymore. I'm guessing that it started about 10, 15 years ago when people would do these broadcasts and upload them on iTunes, and then you could listen to them on an iPod. I'm assuming that's where the word podcast came from. So it's completely obsolete. And I don't want to, the difficulty of this show is going to be carving out a unique place for it because, look, there's a million of these things out there.
Now, there's not a lot of people talking about thinking freely and looking at both sides of it, though. It's slanted one way or the other.
It's much more oriented towards market segmentation, meaning
target
target audience.
Target audience.
I want you to like me, so I'm going to tell you one side of an issue.
If you're doing it right, people will fucking target you.
Right.
That's like. Hopefully, anyway, the ones who have their eyes open, which is about 5%. So, you can look forward to those numbers one day.
So, I mean, there's a million podcasts out there, but the good thing is a lot of them are just awful, and a lot of them are solo deals with some guy that just sits in his apartment and talks, and kind of with that egotistical idea that I'm really interesting. And you'll listen to some of these, and the dude is like listing off the songs in his like iTunes list category, just kind of riffing about what he's listened to today. So hopefully,
or makeup tutorials.
Oh man!
But so I mean, I agree with you that thinking about it, it's hard to believe that we would get to a place in this country where the citizens would need guns to arm themselves against government oppression. But I don't know how far away we are, And I understand, too, like the whole thing about, but the military has so much stuff, and you can't fight an F-16 or whatever with, your handgun.
Well, even the SWAT team.
But, like, tell that to the Taliban, though.
Yeah,
they're fighting fucking tanks and F-16s with rifles, man. They're doing it.
The Viet Cong, all kinds of populations of countries have fought off the U.S. military.
What a nightmare. What a nightmare if it ever comes to that, man.
Well, and
the whole way of life collapses.
They're feeding that fear of jihad in America. Things of this nature, they feed you the fear of what's coming across the southern border. This freaks my fucking parents out.
That story is so old of the foreign people coming in. Every era of this nation's history and the world history, you've got some tale of the Red Chinese are amassing in northern Mexico. They're getting ready to come. People in the 60s
Chinese soldiers are training in America to deal with American citizens. Here they are. There's bases here.
We got the FEMA camps. I mean, it's like, no one is this organized. Like, I believe that there are conspiracies that we don't know about, but not a lot of them.
Well, you're talking about rounding us up into FEMA camps, and I think of it took FEMA how long to get water to the fucking Superdome, and they're gonna round up a population.
Yeah,
come on, man, they can't even barely tie their fucking shoes.
350 million people.
Yeah, they can barely tie their fucking shoes.
And the funny thing about the scare about Mexico, people coming up from there, we've already had foreign people come into our country and attack us. They didn't come through Mexico, came through the Canadian border.
Right.
For 9/11.
Right.
And
Saudis.
Yeah, but we're
Saudis,
still
a lot of them.
But we're still worried about the Mexican border all the time.
It seems legit.
And
here's this segues into another thing I wanted to get into, which is this whole Chris Kyle thing, and we can make this kind of brief so we don't go too long here. But, I mean, it's another great example of people identifying with one side or an imaginary picture of who this man was, for example.
Yeah,
and then you've got people saying,
I'm reading his book currently.
You're reading.
I
the
like
book.
him less. Since I've I've started reading the book.
Yeah, he's pretty a boastful guy, right? I mean,
well, I don't know if he's boastful, but he liked it. He liked combat. He dug the jazz.
Right.
He totally believed in what he was doing. I don't believe all the same things he believed. I have mixed feelings about the guy. Like he's not
as anyone
a
should,
petition to get him a Medal of Honor. Like that's fucking ridiculous. I'm just gonna say it's fucking ridiculous. He's been built up to be kind of a god, and from people that we both know that know him, I've heard he was kind of a jerk. And my friend Katie, who's following the trial, she didn't know anything about it before. She's following the trial. Eddie Ray Ruth, the guy who shot him and Chad Littleton or Littlefield.
I'm not sure.
It's escaping me, but they were reading text from Kyle to his wife. This is what Katie tells me. I have absolutely no firsthand knowledge of this, but that he was telling her how crazy this guy was and that they had stopped talking to him. And I had actually told Christine, I wonder if Kyle was a dick to the guy and he just
maybe he was giving him a tough love kind of approach.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm sure Kyle was there to help him. I think he wanted to help.
I think he wanted to. Initially, I think the guy was so ill though that what we were used to dealing with, that he was like, I don't know what to do with this guy. Yeah. So he did what most people do, is just get away from me. We're like, well, I'll give you a ride home, but
right. But Kyle's like, what are you going to do to me? I'm
there's an air of invincibility that he felt. Like there's a part in his book where he's talking about he never got hurt in combat so far, but he would always do something when he got home. And the guys are like, oh, you took your cape off when you get home. I mean, how fast do you think it goes to your head when the guys you're working with and the guys you're covering call you the legend?
But here's
to your face.
Right.
I mean,
it goes right to your head.
But if I'm a Marine in Fallujah and
you want him,
I fucking want Chris Kyle on that roof. I want 10 Chris Kyles on that roof, dude.
And that's fine. But here's where it comes together to my approach to ethics again. It's like, look, this guy likes what he's doing. He supports the cause that he's involved in, the Iraq War, and so be it. I have no place to criticize soldiers, because I've never been in any situation close to what they go through. So I just don't have enough perspective to make an ethical judgment on them. But I will not be told that I have to respect or. Obviously, I shouldn't disrespect. This I agree with. But told that I have to support, with air quotes, support the troops. But what if I don't support this thing that they're doing? It's fine that they're doing it, but I don't have to support it, and I won't be called unpatriotic or un-American for not supporting them.
Yeah, but you're gonna be.
I will be.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
It's gonna happen.
And that's it. I mean, like, look. Take the city of Tucson as a microcosm of the nation, and say half the city wants to bulldoze Sabino Canyon, and they're going to install a shopping center, and it's going to bring.
I'll be glad I have my rifle.
It's going to bring 5,000 jobs to the city. It's going to change Tucson. It's like, or some company is moving in there, and half the city is against it, and half is for it. Well,
but they do it anyway.
Say it passes, okay, 51% or a majority of people want it to happen. And they all believe this is going to help Tucson. We want to help Tucson. Then on the other side, it's us saying this isn't going to help Tucson, and I'm not in favor of it. Well, say that they do it anyway, and there's builders out there, or I don't know, guys working out there to bulldoze the place, and they're getting attacked by mountain lions, and they're falling into holes and dying, and then now these guys come out on TV. It would be like the analogy to the soldiers is: am I supposed to support what those guys are doing? And because am I supposed to give them money or support their hospital bills because they got eaten by a mountain lion or their leg got bitten off? No, I never supported them being there in the first place. So with the Iraq War, it's the same thing. I didn't want you guys to go over there, but you signed up and you went and you believed you were doing it for me. I think a lot of soldiers probably do believe that. Not all of them. And a lot of them have other reasons for joining. They want to be soldiers. They want to get in the shit. It's complicated.
It's like an heirloom in some families.
Oh yeah,
military service.
Yeah, it's a tradition.
It is. It's a big deal.
But even the ones who are serving as a family tradition, I don't think a lot of them want to go to war.
No,
they want to serve, but I don't think they want to actually get into combat.
But some of them do.
No, there are people that do. There are people that do, and we should be signing those people up.
Right.
I think we should be taking murderers out of prison
right.
and putting them in the military and sending them over there as kill teams.
I think there's a quote.
Those are unstable people. I mean, they might steal from the quartermaster and kill their own sergeant.
That's true, but I'm talking about in specific like kill teams, like send them a special mission.
Right.
Like you guys, here's your weapons. We're dropping you off here. You kill as many people as you want, and then. We're basically just leaving you there. No, don't even tell them that, but like we're just going to leave you there.
We'll be back some other time.
There's a quote about that. Like 80 of the guys are just cannon fodder. They shouldn't even be there. 10 can fight, and then there's 9 of them that can really fight. But there's one guy.
Yeah, and he's on cloud 9.
I mean, who would want to go to war less than the soldier? Like they have to fight it. They want to go less than anybody else for the most part.
Right.
Well, but Marines though, when they're getting ready or they haven't been in the shit, they're loving it. They're like, "Come on, let me in!" They really work those guys up.
Yeah,
and
honestly, when my buddy Andy gets down here, you should get him on here.
Yeah, I know a lot of soldiers, like my friend Chuck on Facebook too, and now he's become an extreme liberal. Yeah. But he's a big time. He's
But he kind of knows how to stand on
forces.
both sides of the line too. Like he can see the other side of the argument. He's a funny guy too. I like him.
He's a great guy.
Funny.
I would love to have him.
The illusion that I think you were getting to, and that everyone doesn't really want to look at or believe, is that, like you said, they're doing this for us. I don't think in my lifetime a war has been fought for me and my rights.
Right.
To keep me, my even freedom. Keep me safe, my freedom, whatever. I don't think that's happened.
There's never been a domestic threat to America. Like fucking China's going to invade. We got to go to war.
No, there's been domestic threats. Like in what was it in 1984? There's definitely a threat of Russia bombing us. But there was no military.
Well, they're still buzzing our coastline, man. They've been flying in our airspace. Putin's
he's
puffing
out his chest because we're pushing him into a corner on Ukraine.
Yeah,
well,
which is a bad plan.
Right, but what I'm saying is in 1984 it got to a very bad point.
When we boycotted the Olympics
then it got better, and it's gotten worse now again with Putin and everything that has been going on. But I'm just saying that. Like you said, there was a threat to me then, and just like there's probably a threat to me now. But we don't have any military. We're not sending troops in anywhere to circumvent that. We're not. You know what I mean? There's nothing the military is doing to keep me safe from Russia's nuclear weapons.
We're in Afghanistan still prosecuting that war, and we have troops in a lot of other areas as well. But are those? I mean, is the Afghanistan war? I mean, what is it? Is it revenge, or are we trying to we're trying to cut the head off of Al Qaeda and other groups like that?
We're doing exactly what Russia was doing in the 80s, and which we were on the other side. Down. We were the ones arming them, who was fighting the Russians now, and funding them.
Your father was is an army.
Arabic linguist. Retired.
Command Sergeant Major.
Yeah.
He was involved in that.
Well, I mean, 80s, I speculate. He won't tell me shit. You ask Dad what he did, and he tells you, he served the country for 30 years. He won't tell you anything. But we trained Bin Laden to fight. He was a rich Saudi, as far as I know. I'm not too versed on this, but I think the skeleton of it. He's a rich Saudi who's into the Mujahideen. He hates the Russian occupation. These godless communists in fucking Afghanistan. So he puts a lot of money into it of his own, and he gets some Green Beret and CIA training, and they show him how to bring down those choppers and how to fucking fight guerrilla warfare. And now they're using those same tactics against us. And I've talked about that with my dad and the changing political climates, and guys that are our allies here, and it brings up the question to me of how much help do we offer these guys who are our allies today with our fighting tactics and our fighting machines, and then 10 years later this is our enemy now,
right.
and we showed them how we fight,
and that's what we've done time and time again. I mean, it's not just Bin Laden. We did it with Saddam Hussein. We've done it with plenty of other people,
But you can't back out of world politics anymore with the way things are. You can't go isolationist like we were initially. It's not gonna work. But where's the
It's world hegemony is what our goal is. It's basically controlling all the trouble spots of the world.
We've been building empire.
We don't even have our own under control.
We've been building empire, which is not what I think we ever wanted to do. But
so you would say that we're imperialist?
I would say our government has, at least. Our government is trying to
bases in foreign countries. You've got over 800
and promote capital. Not even like imperialism, and to the point
that's
democracy.
That's one thing Dad did tell me right away when they started the drawdown. He said, don't be fooled. They're never giving up those air bases over there. We're never going to give those up.
Even my instinct, which was let's just get out of the Middle East, like. Alternative energy is so important because if we can get away from that oil dependency, we can get out of the area and just let it do what it wants. But, I read an article by an economist who was saying, man, if the oil production or the sale of oil in Saudi Arabia and countries in the Middle East was cut off, the effects would be disastrous because the extremism that you have there now is only going to be increased with increasing poverty. So if the world gets off of Middle Eastern oil, those countries, I mean, at least this guy thought it's going to lead to way more extremism and more problems, more danger, because as those big populations don't have food, don't have jobs. Right. Because in Saudi Arabia, for example, the government just gives you a job. If you're a young man, they give you a job. You work like 52% of men graduate with a degree in religious studies, and they just make them religious studies teachers in the universities, and they work like 2 hours a day because no, they don't need 10,000 religious studies teachers for this next group of men. So like they just give you a job and they give you money. You get a check in the mail from the Saudi government, and that's how the economy is kept afloat because that government just has so much money from oil revenues that they just give it out. It's socialism, but so there's no real economy. That's the problem. There's no real economy
what does happen there if the world gets off oil?
You think it's going to be good? Like, they'll just have to learn how to form a real economy.
Well, because it's going to take how many centuries are they behind in their thinking over there? A lot of places.
In their
I
infrastructure.
know that sounds pretty bigoted, but I just
in their infrastructure, it's objectively true, or at least their economic structure of those companies, they're far behind.
Except for oil.
Except for oil, they've got money.
Yeah,
but they don't have a self-sustaining economy like maybe we used to.
Because we don't produce anything anymore except.
But whatever they have, they should
air.
They should be allowed to determine that. You know what I mean? Like it's not on us to prop their government or culture up.
Right.
It's not on us to fix whatever they need fixed.
And
that's the thing that we've been doing, and that's what I was saying too about the troops. And what you were getting to,
though. I mean, we don't give a fuck about genocide in Africa.
Right.
Yeah, I guess
we could care less. So we're not on human rights missions to protect the Kurds or fucking free the people of Iraq. Like that bothers me when people believe that, because that's not why we're there. Because if that's why we were picking fights, if that's why we were sending troops abroad, then wouldn't we be dealing with Boko Haram, and wouldn't we have dealt with the fucking genocide in Sri Lanka, or no, I'm sorry, not Sri Lanka, but Sierra Leone and Rwanda and all these places where just people were being slaughtered by the hundreds of thousands, and we're not sending anybody over there to help them.
I don't understand why our bombing raids and our air support against ISIS isn't more effective. I know it stopped their advance.
Yeah.
But can't you just kill them all? Like, we have so much technology, satellites looking at that area. Like, can't you just strafe a group of 50 of them with that automatic cannon in one of those? I mean, I don't get it. Obviously, it's ignorance on my part. It's ignorance, but they stopped their approach. I'm like, that's it. Like, kill them.
Yeah, it's well, I think rules of engagement play a large,
and they should.
I wonder how much like Bryan would say if you had him on, like how much he would feel like comfortable talking about why they can't do that. He'd probably be a good guy to have on and ask.
He would
if you wanted to focus on that kind of
and guys like him. Yeah, I want to have them on it, and I want to get into like the nitty gritty of what it's like serving and operating over there. Because that's what I don't know.
So that's why I should have Andy on.
Like, honestly.
Yeah, like I can he won't pull any punches, dude.
Right, and because I can have my little theories about politics and economics, but the thing I really have no ground to stand on is what combat is like.
What it's like over there on the ground,
right?
In theater.
Well, and so getting back to your initial point about the troops and empathy for them or supporting them, like I agree with you, but in the fact that I don't think, well, I don't want them doing that. I'm not for the war in Afghanistan or the war in Iraq or anywhere, but I have empathy for the troops that are going over there because I don't think most of them want to be there, and they got sent over there for wrong reasons. No matter what they joined up for, they're being sent over there for big corporate interest reasons, weapons manufacturing, all kinds of stuff, just basically to create wealth for a certain segment of population here. And so I support the troops in the way that I want them coming back, safe, sound, not injured,
But if they come back injured, if you send a guy to war, you got a fucking responsibility to take care of his ass when he comes home.
You have to do that.
Take care.
The government's sending you to war, and then when you come back, just sorry,
you're on your own.
That's
buddy.
bullshit. Yeah. That's complete bullshit.
Take care of the guys you send to war.
But
because I think a lot of them, when they do sign up, like you said, they or whoever said it, they believe they're doing it for us. When they sign on that line and they volunteer for that,
they're 18 years old.
Well, and there's a certain amount of trust they're putting in the establishment too.
Exactly.
To use them in a righteous. I hesitate to use the word righteous, but they're trusting their administration and their command to use them in a good cause, not to spend their lives for bullshit.
Right, and that comes down to.
And I think
fantasy
we failed
about
them
war.
On that level. We failed them on that.
And that comes down to fantasy about war and what we've been led to believe about war and military operations, and then that comes back down to Chris Kyle, an American sniper. Like, I might think that the dude is a douchebag personally, but how many people in the military have been douchebags that then got a Medal of Honor? I'm sure there's plenty. There's plenty of people that aren't that great of people that can still do heroic things in war.
Good at their job.
And so that's the thing is like people judging Chris Kyle as they live their life here.
Yeah.
Walk a mile in his shoes. It's different. If you're in a war, it is completely different than how you behave going to the grocery store.
Yeah. And Chris Kyle and every other veteran doesn't need my approval. They don't need my support for what they did over there. As long as I'm respectful and a nice person to them, and I respect the crazy experience that they had, that's all they need from me as a human being.
No, I completely believe that whole support the troops, yellow ribbon crap is a ruse by the government so that they can the American public is supporting you. It's not like Vietnam, you're coming back and they're nice to you, so we don't really have to invest that much money in helping you out when you come back.
There's a distinction between supporting the war and supporting the troops.
Right.
It's two different. You can separate that. There's some gray area in between it, but me personally, I don't feel like there's much. I can feel good about these guys doing what they do for the reasons they do it, and not support the actual motives.
It does get tricky though if you want to be completely, or if I want to be completely honest. So the one side might view that what we're doing over there is helping America and it's protecting our freedom. Well, there's a pretty good argument on the other side that it's damaging America. It's really like economically, the money spent, the lives lost, the world perception of our country in a million other ways that it's bad. What's going on there is bad. So that becomes very tricky when you try to respond or speak to or empathize with a veteran, a combat veteran, because I might believe, and I'm not going to say this to the guy unless we're close and, having a really honest conversation, but I might not really support what you're doing. I might think what you're doing is hurting my country. So then if I really believe that to be true, what is my appropriate reaction to that person? Clearly, it's going to be respectful, like it should be with every human being at all times. But, what am I going to say to that guy? I think what you did hurt us. Well, it hurt my freedom.
And then, like that, even just to the point of saying what you did was not fighting for me. Like, almost all of them, like you said, the girl talking to you, I served in the country to keep you safe or
so you can shut the fuck up.
So you can have these freedoms.
Yeah, you don't even fucking know me.
I'm
not doing nothing I'm doing. I'm fucking doing for you, buddy. I don't know you.
Right.
So
might be doing it for your country, but don't tell them you're doing it for fucking me.
But that's a mindset that's been that gets drilled into them too.
But if you say something like that, though, it automatically gets taken the wrong way. I mean, I like that you're doing it for your country. Fucking thank you for your service. I never bash anyone. You know me, bro. I hold soldiers in a very high regard. I think it's an honorable profession.
Well, and anyone that says that too, they're not saying it to you like, hey, I really like you, and I want you to know that what you're doing now and the life you're living is, I helped out in some way. It's always like, oh, fuck you.
It's always to shut down your opinion.
Yeah, it's always like,
if I'm against the war, you might have someone, and it's usually a friend or a relative of a veteran saying it,
right.
and I might say, hey, this war sucks, and they go, hey, you can shut up because these guys did such and such for you so that you could say that, so you could have the freedom to say this opinion. I'm like, no, they didn't. That war did not protect my ability to say this.
Yeah,
it did not. I mean, is it even? Is that military action even going to prevent another terrorist attack, or is it going to egg them on? I don't know. I don't know for sure. But it seems like both possibilities are within the realm of reason.
Right.
So it's going to instigate reprisal, I'm sure. When I get punched in the mouth, I generally start fighting back.
Yeah. So with Chris Kyle, man, and it's just funny because we'll never know the man. The man is dead, and it's tragic that he is. We'll never know him, but the country has divided once again on a perception of who this man was.
Well, and part of it's honestly his own fault because, there's nobody who corroborates that Jesse Ventura story.
Well, not only that, it was disproven in court.
Right.
To win a libel case,
it's not easy.
You have to. It's not easy at all.
Right.
And Jesse Ventura won that case because he demonstrated to a jury that the incident never happened and that he wasn't there at all.
Right.
And the same with Chris Kyle
Plus, it
bragging.
would have been assault on a public official.
Right. So. Chris Kyle also bragged about, this is bizarre to me.
Was it shooting looters
in New Orleans. Now, is that, what I don't understand about that is people are like, oh, he didn't really shoot looters. That was a lie. Well, I'm like, okay, fine.
So
but why did he claim that he did? Is that legal? Did that ever happen? Did snipers ever fire on looters?
It's certainly well, I know there were private contractors down there working some security, and there were stories about that. But it's hard to find shit like that.
Yeah,
the government doesn't want that getting out either. I'm sure they don't want that all over CNN that there's private contractors fucking capping looters in New Orleans.
People were killed by gunshot,
right?
During that time.
Definitely.
Who knows whether they had a TV in their hands or not. I don't, or breaking into someplace.
Yeah, but a sniper, that to me is like a whole different level of military operation. Where you're just picking dudes off without saying freeze. Police, you're under arrest. Right. Stop.
No,
it's just picking guys. That's not illegal. Is it?
Well, another thing about that is bizarre to me is if government contractors or government or corporations or whatever are going to do that and employ someone to be a sniper in New Orleans to pick off looters, why aren't we, instead of going to war, why aren't we just doing stuff like that about the terrorists? Just get a couple snipers to go take Bin Laden out. Just, what I mean? Instead
we are doing targeted precision operations.
But instead of spending so much money on a whole...
But even that costs so much money because, okay, so you put that sniper in there, right? But he's calling in grids and coordinates, and you got fucking planes above him, and there's the whole support system for him because you're not just going to fly him all the way over from here and fucking drop him off. There's bases, forward operating bases. We got advisors there. We're attached to the Iraqi military, and face it, they're going to fucking fall apart without our intervention. Every time we try to pull out even a little, shit goes to pot over there. Yeah. And that's going to keep repeating for another 1,000 years. That's stuck on.
Well, Mark,
cycle.
Even what you're saying though, you're very much against. You have a negative opinion of these drone strikes. Okay, so this is we probably don't have time to get into this topic, but that's supposed to be Obama's thing is drone strikes and it was a public relations kind of disaster because the whole point was targeted precision bombing. Where no American casualties.
To Americans,
and it seemed like the perfect thing. It's like, well, the public won't be against this if we're not losing our boys and girls over there. But now the public is against it because there's something immoral. There's something freaky about it.
They think there's military fanboys at Davis Monthan fucking doing indiscriminate fucking drone strikes on Afghani civilians.
Well, playing video games are the pilots.
There's been occurrences of that.
Yeah, and
there's been wedding parties in Afghanistan that have been fucking shot down by shot at by the drones and people killed. So my problem with the drones is that they're way less precision than one sniper. Right. You know what I mean? The sniper is going to see, oh no, that's... So you're saying, even if they're shooting guns up in the air, it's a party of a bunch of people having some sort of celebration.
You're saying like assassinations, like take out the top guys one after the other.
No, so let me ask you this: if there was like a team spotlighting targets for drones out there rather than the drone, like, because I don't know what the rules of engagement for drones are. Like, are they picking their own targets, or are there boots on the ground?
Right, I don't know.
Targets, or how are they determining? I don't know enough about it to really opine. But the rules of engagement would make a big difference to a lot of people, I would think, on knowing what they are. Like because if you have a guy on the ground, like, these are our guys, this is our target.
Yeah,
I think maybe people feel better about that. Maybe that's even happening and they don't know. But
could be
fog of war too sometimes.
Why did Obama just instantly abandon his policy of transparency? I mean, that was gonna be the shining thing about his government.
Because he's a politician and a fucking liar.
Instantly, like, I mean, but the thing, what I'm confused about is why didn't he lie better? Like, why didn't he make a big show of revealing some secrets that weren't really that important, but that we would think were important? But he didn't. He clammed up right away. He did like a weekly broadcast for like a month.
You know what I'm going to equate it to, and this is probably bad. I don't know if you guys know what Kristallnacht is.
Yeah, in Nazi Germany, right. The night of broken glass.
And it was like a fucking test run to see what the world would say.
Right.
So he you do things like that, and you see like how much do people really care?
Right.
And people really don't. Your supporters particularly didn't care at all. So then you can just fucking abandon honesty because you know it doesn't really matter.
And look, the verdict is in about Nazi Germany. The people knew.
Yeah, they fucking knew.
The citizens knew.
Yeah, they knew.
Right. But at the same time, I was talking about this with my mom, and she was saying, look, they knew. And I was saying, yeah, but say it got to that point here. I'm like, Mom, are you going to go out and stop the soldiers from rounding people up? I mean, she's like, no. And I was like, right. Am I going to do it? And I made her laugh because I was like, I'm the guy that's supposed to go. I'm the young male that's supposed to be the guy that stands up and says, this is wrong. Am I going to go against a SWAT team who's rounding up people? Right. No, I guess not.
Especially not if you've been disarmed.
Yeah, but even if I mean, right. Those guys. Well,
there's the quote by the
mop the floor with me.
There's a quote by the one pastor that I don't remember it exactly, so I'm going to screw it all up. But when they came for the gypsies, I didn't speak up because I wasn't a gypsy. So when they came for the socialists, I didn't speak up because I wasn't a socialist. When they came for the Jews, I didn't speak up because I wasn't a Jew. And now that they've come for me, there's no one to speak up.
Right?
Like it's what do you do in that? Like
such a bizarre.
Well, and then back nightmare. To about Obama and why he didn't lie better. I think also that's just a clear difference between Republicans and Democrats. I think Democrats are bad liars, whereas Republicans
sure
are maybe better.
Well, they're
better at spin.
Yeah,
I think they're better at spin, and I think.
The Democrats, I think, kind of are like, oh, you got me, but I'm still better than those guys.
Right. Well,
I mean, that's kind of the attitude.
No,
exactly.
Both operate off of that lesser of two evils.
Bullshit.
Fantasy.
You can call it bullshit.
Well, and the Republicans at least seem to believe what they're saying. A lot of times, the Democrats, they're saying it to make you believe it. Right. But they don't seem like they believe it.
Yeah, that's a good point. They don't have that. A lot of times it's that empty fire. They'll get cowed and bow out, and there's such fervor on the other side.
Right.
No one believes that Nancy Pelosi believes anything. Like, no one believes that she has any ideals at all. But these guys, the guy with the snowball in Congress, you're like, God. This guy really is an idiot. Like, he really thinks the snowball. Like,
yes.
I see what you're saying. They believe that they drink their own Kool-Aid.
Well, some of the comments about rape and just like things that I've seen Republican
they
senators
express
make,
a genuine ignorance. They express a genuine, and when those guys probably listen to themselves later, some of them are probably like, oh man,
how many of you think
really
they self-abuse? Like, can you cover up a black guy if I punch myself? Like, I really,
I guess they have the luxury of like a more primitive but more compelling ideology, and usually that's a religious.
Well, that's another thing I didn't even touch on the gun issue. I don't like how the right attaches religion to the gun issue, or everything.
Yeah,
like it's a Christian nation. Is it really? Yeah. Like that? There's a little common misconception that we probably don't have time for either.
Yeah, get back to Jefferson and the other,
because it wasn't built on Christian principles. If you ask the Native American,
these founding fathers like a minority of them were devout Christians. Like John Adams was. I think he was a Quaker. But the other guys,
I'm pretty sure you're right. That's why he's on Quaker Oats.
Yeah. Oh, Jefferson, Hamilton, especially. These guys were intellectuals, and deism was the order of the day, which is kind of like something that I could kind of get on board with that. Kind of like a vague, sort of agnostic-y, sort of question-y, like maybe there's a negative force and a positive force in the universe or something, but I'm not going to get too specific because I know I'll be wrong. That's kind of my approach to spirituality.
Yeah, my views keep changing on this stuff.
And they should. That's a good sign.
I think really you want to know what's weird? Okay, I've been an atheist for a long time, and I tried to believe. I really did. I tried praying. I tried going to church. I tried finding faith. I actually did give it a shot, and I constantly felt ridiculous. But when I went back to school and I had to take all the sciences in my A&P class when we got to the eye, and I had a great teacher. She's amazing, really. I thought I hated her and I loved her. Totally different story, but she told me that the eye made Darwin doubt his theories because it's the design is so incredible, and the incredible part of it is it doesn't work without being the exact way it is. So how did it evolve to that? How did it ever work?
Why would the body say, "Oh, let's replicate this"? If it wasn't seeing anything,
if it wasn't working, is it just working it out? Like, so we're blind until this shit comes together because there's pulleys and loops in there.
No, I mean there is a chain of eyes in different species. So you can look at the different. There's primitive eyes in like fish and stuff that just see light blobs, and so you can kind of see the eye getting better
about
across
ours and
species.
most mammals in particular.
Right.
I think,
and I think it's still a problem.
That made him doubt, and then this whole thing of an infinite universe that sprang from nothing. Like I don't.
Well, that's what physicists say. They go give us a miracle, and we'll give you the rest.
We'll give you the rest. Yeah, but I can't give him the miracle, bro. I can't sit here and say, no, like this all, it doesn't make sense to me from any angle. So I'm going to have to admit more. I'm not even so much identifying myself as an atheist or an agnostic or a believer anymore. I just don't fucking have any idea.
Well, that's an agnostic.
And I don't,
that's what it is.
And the weird thing is, like, this used to be more important to me anymore. I don't even give a shit to talk about it, to discuss it. I don't think it really should factor into my life at all and how I live on a day-to-day basis and how I deal with other people and how I approach the future.
And atheism,
because I'm sure not worried about eternal damnation,
right,
or heaven.
But atheism can take the place, the negative function that religious fundamentalism holds. You can just put atheism in that place, and you can become an internet warrior.
It's not
for atheism.
It fills the same hole,
right?
And it for you, it serves the same purpose. It gives you the same.
This brings us to the meaning of radical agnosticism, which is just we express the positive virtues of human nature best when we avoid ideology and identifying ourselves with a set of beliefs, because maintaining curiosity
other than an individual set.
What's your question?
Other than an individual set of beliefs, like not a group set of beliefs. Like, I don't want to be identified as this or that. I want to be identified as John.
Right. Carving out your own set of beliefs, latching on to others that you find,
the Bruce Lee theory of life, like take
sense.
what you need and put it all.
Yeah, it's kind of like
the
shopping market sort of analogy. But basically, it's not belief that's harmful. It's identifying belief with your personality and who you are, so that if someone challenges the belief, you feel that you're being personally offended or challenged. That's where you go astray.
Do you get the war on Christianity? This kind of makes me laugh.
It should.
There's a church on every corner. You don't pay any taxes. Like I still see the 700 Club on every night.
The war on Christmas.
Where's the war on Christianity? Where is it? I hate seeing this. My mom puts this up there. The war on Christianity. It's not okay to be Christian. What are you talking about?
It's the gun owner thing again, though. It's creating a fear. When you're ahead, it's 10-0 in a soccer game, and you're complaining to the ref about an offsides call.
Yeah.
And you won't let the game continue because you're screaming at the ref. No, there was an offside. It's 10-0. Just let the clock run out.
Yeah.
You won already. Yes, Christianity is in decline, but there's going to be blowbacks of extremism for a long time.
Hopefully that's because rationality and reason is on the incline.
I don't think that is the reason.
I don't think it is either.
I think it's just that a sea change. We're in the age of Aquarius or whatever. We're moving to the next.
We're in the age of entitlement, man. Aquarius is over, bro. It's done.
Well, I think we expressed the sort of the purpose of the show well. I hope. I mean, we'll listen to it and see what it's like. I know I hate the sound of my own voice.
I thought we were going to talk jiu-jitsu at some point, man. Now I got to come back.
Oh, you're gonna be back, dude. You're like the ideal guest, I think.
Well, I think I'm the ideal guest to start because you set the bar so low. Like, other people will not be afraid to come on here because they're like, well, Bryan fucking screwed that pooch already. Like, we got to be able to.
I definitely want some police officers and some combat veterans, and then some other guys that have like lived kind of the opposite life, like on the other side of the law.
Tony
Caps?
Oh, yeah, you got to get Tony Caps in here.
You know Caps.
Yeah.
So fucking, I just want to hear Caps do his thing, man. Because he's going to offend, man. I can't wait to.
Or get Dan in here, but
Big Keith.
Oh yeah, I would like Big Keith on here.
I would really like to hear him answer questions on anything important because he's definitely going to have an opinion.
He is.
Yeah.
Well,
and it'll he's a lot like me too, passionate, but a little informed.
He's a smart guy,
yeah.
and he changes his viewpoints.
He will.
He was so against like entitlements like food stamps,
right?
And then now he's kind of like he's listening to the other memes that say, corporate entitlement is the real problem.
Yeah,
so he's changing his view. He's evolving his view.
Yeah.
But
which is a sign of a healthy person, if you ask me. Your view should always be evolving.
Mark, you're in a band. You're the lead guy, aren't you? In a band, Linguas Largas.
No, I'm in that band.
Okay.
I just play guitar in that.
Oh,
band.
all right. What else? What else? Other projects are you doing?
Doing Junkie Vomit right now, which I'm playing bass in, and Obi from Fuck to Singing, Alex and Mikey from Death Trip are playing guitar and drums.
Do you have any plugs you want to make for dates in the next couple weeks?
There was something going on, but I can't remember. March 24th at the Think Tank, which is like on the corner of 6th Avenue and 22nd, across from the church.
Okay.
Linguas Largas is going to play with some out-of-town bands. I don't know if it costs anything. It starts at 7 o'clock. It's a Tuesday. So,
all right, guys, go out and see that. Mark's a great musician, and it's everything he's involved with is quality. But anyway, if you made it to the end, I really appreciate it. Hit me up and also hit Mark up or Bryan with recommendations, suggestions, any comments about this non-podcast, how to make it better. And we'll be back next Sunday. I'm not sure who the guest is going to be, so it'll be a big surprise. And thanks for listening.